right, welcome to the Player Podcast. Tonight, me and Riley are going to be discussing what's going down in the gaming community, talk about what games we've been playing this week. And to start off, let's dive into it, man. So,
Dive in.
Dive right into new loot box regulations. This is kind of cool. I didn't think we'd ever see the day that there'd be some regulations against loot boxes. What do you think this is going to do to the gaming community?
Probably mostly nothing, is my guess.
Yeah.
Some devs, maybe not necessarily devs, but publishers, looking at things like Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo are going to require games developers to disclose the odds of getting the goods loot box, basically.
Yeah.
It's a cool idea. I think a big sticking point with loot boxes for players is that there is this sort of like inherent try and get that lucky item from the loot box, and when you do get it, you get that hit. It's just like, yeah, let me get another one.
Yeah.
And so that you only have a 1 in 600 odds of getting the item that you want. It kind of a little bit of water on that. And you can obviously still try and get it. They're not saying you can't, but
yeah. So I've heard loot boxes described as slot machines a little bit. Do you think that a lot of these game developers are going to change the algorithm to win these loot boxes, or do you think they're going to just leave it but just kind of show you the odds, like, hey, you have a pretty slim chance of buying this loot box to get that item? You think they're going to change anything, like, with the algorithm?
Point, they're the norm.
I
think they're going anywhere. Publishers want them to be in the games because they can make hella bank from the loot boxes. So we're gonna see any changes. I think we'll see is we'll continue to see more aggressive schemes going forward.
Yeah.
The problem is there's no transparency. There's not really anybody in track of what's going on.
Right.
This was actually in the news. What it was, I think, was that these developers were saying to influencers, hey, we want you to promote our game. And it came out, someone leaked it, that they were actually being paid and getting better drop rates from the loot boxes than actual players would. So there's definitely a situation where the developers are going to try and make it seem like they and really they're still just doing sort of shady stuff behind the scenes to get you to buy loot boxes.
Yeah. It's kind of a dangerous thing, especially since so many little kids are playing these games, and I've heard of horror stories of kids who just drop $100 bills on loot boxes because they want one specific item. I think it kind of teaches a bad thing to these kids that are playing these games. So I think it's gonna be good.
Honestly, if you don't think the developers are aware of that sort of situation, then they're not ignorant about that, and they're designing their programs. Take some advantage of that, which again, like I said, is pretty shady. In general. So it is pretty shady. And I
want to give props to Rocket League because they're kind of getting rid of the whole loot box thing. They're gonna, trading is gonna stay, which I always thought was a cool idea, that you could trade stuff with other players. And that's how I got some of the best stuff that I have in my Rocket League account. But it's kind of interesting. They're going to remove the crates from the game sometime later this year. They haven't announced exactly when they're going to be doing that. But they said that they're going to replace it with a system that's going to show exactly what items you're going to be buying in advance. So I think that's going to be a better model moving forward. I think this is something that Fortnite is very successful at. You know what you're buying when you go in the game. It's not randomized. If there's a skin you want or a pickaxe, you know what you're buying and you can buy it. And I think that's a great model. And I hope that that's kind of what this is going to be like. It kind of sounds like that's what it's going to be. And hopefully it'll be more profitable because, to be honest, I loved playing Rocket League a couple years ago. It was back when you and I played it all the time. I got a couple of crates that I had earned, but I always got garbage crap in there, and it never enticed me to actually pay for anything because I just assumed I would be paying for garbage loot that I didn't want. So I never did. I never actually paid for anything. So maybe something like this is it would be more enticing for me to go buy something if I knew what I'd be getting in one of their crates. But good guy Rocket League.
Always good guy Rocket League.
Good guy Rocket League. But speaking of like skins and stuff with Fortnite, I guess there's a little bit of drama going down with Apex and their skins.
Yeah, I mean, they came up with a different system than like the random loot boxes for their current Crown event. They introduced like 20 or like 25 new cosmetic items into the game.
Right.
Them by purchasing their loot crate options with real money. So have an heirloom item as like the grand final item. You still have to unlock it from a loot crate that you buy with money once you've unlocked all the other ones. So I mean, they're definitely asking a lot of money if you're wanting to get all those items.
Right.
Cosmetic items, they do have a bearing on the game, I think, right? Like, people want to look cool, they want to look like their friends. You never want to queue into Fortnite with a default skin. Like, it's just garbage, right?
Unless you're a pro player.
They're definitely a part of the game, and developers are using that to influence you a little bit to buy loot boxes.
Right.
And who I've really liked their games in the past, and I like Apex. I just don't play it. They kind of went maybe a little too far in this event.
Yeah.
I think that community members are upset about it. It's caused some drama in that, in that community, in that subreddit especially. I don't know. I don't think they're going to go anywhere, loot boxes. And if there is a little more regulation, that's probably good.
Yeah.
I'm not against loot boxes.
Right.
I just think that a lot of the ways that people, that developers use their systems are kind of scummy sometimes.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, Fortnite, if I see a skin and I know that's the one I want and I want to throw $5 at it, perfect. Like, I think that's a fine way to do a microtransaction.
Right.
I see that if I see that skin, but other items in the loot pool, and I'm supposed to buy loot boxes until I get it. Like, that's just not interesting to me. So, who knows, dude?
Yeah. Well, it'll be kind of interesting to see how this all plays out. It looks like they got to get these regulations in place pretty quick. Yeah, that's kind of funny that Apex actually kind of went in the opposite direction. They see these regulations coming out and they're like, psych, we're sticking with it. Hopefully it doesn't hurt their player base any with all of this drama. No. We'll see. We'll see how this story unfolds. Xbox has been in the news quite a bit. There's a couple of things kind of going on. So the last couple of episodes, we've kind of discussed Google Stadia and what this is going to do in terms of the future of gaming. You know, there's all of this talk in the community that the future of gaming is going to be streamed online. And so there was an interview with Phil Spencer, and he was talking about streaming versus consoles. And I thought it was kind of interesting, some of the things that he was talking about, because he's saying that there's still a space to have a console, and that traditional consoles, they're not going anywhere just yet. He talked specifically about how Netflix is a 20-year-old company, which is kind of crazy to think about. And then it wasn't until, 10 years ago, give or take, they decided to become a completely stream-based platform, which significantly increased their user base. So he talks about that, and he's saying, it kind of sounds like Phil Spencer is for that model for gaming. He says that sometimes I think that we forget that tech moves so fast, and it took Netflix 2 decades to get to a point where we could stream things like Game of Thrones and House of Cards, which are some of the biggest TV shows on a platform. So more people stream it than actually buy the DVD or watch it on TV. And he thinks that streaming will get more faster in 20 years, but it's going to be a little bit longer than 2 years for the gaming community to actually kind of stream games at that point. But it kind of sounds like with Game Pass and everything that Xbox is working on, they're trying to go for that model where it's more of a subscription service, and you don't buy games necessarily, but a pass so that you can play games in a library like Netflix. What do you think? Do you think Phil Spencer's right in this? Do you think that there's still room for gaming consoles? Do you think they're going to be around for a decade, 2 decades?
Yeah, probably. I mean, people still buy Blu-rays for their own collections.
That's true. Yeah.
I think there will always be a market for different types of consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe what Phil's talking about is described with Netflix. Like when Netflix started with a subscription model, that was kind of the go-to model for getting recurring revenue.
Right.
DVD rentals years ago. So, or 10 years ago, or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the technology improved, as bandwidth got higher, as more and more people got devices that allowed them to access the internet, like transitioned their approach to the digital streaming, which obviously has become the revolution. So,
yeah.
And physical games will necessarily disappear.
Mm-hmm.
I think that probably eventually we probably will stream, maybe the vast majority of gamers will stream their games to their console, Google Stadia style.
Right.
I think what Xbox is doing is probably quite a bit different than like Stadia's business model. They're going to take it a little bit slower, and they're going to kind of ease their way into it with things like you said, like Game Pass. And they're going to a game subscription model over time, and slowly grow that player base and let those players evangelize it to their friends and get them involved, and kind of just like let it organically grow.
Right.
And part of me wonders if Xbox hasn't felt the growing pains that have affected them in the past. Xbox One, when it was announced, was going to be... It had a bunch of features that players didn't want. And Xbox had to roll back a lot of those features. Mm-hmm. And so part of me wonders if they're still feeling that by that, and they don't want to force anything on players and say, hey, from now on, whatever Scarlett's console name is going to be is downloads or digital downloads or streaming only.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want to force your hand. They want you to still have the option.
Yeah.
Eventually, I'm sure, just out of convenience, most players will probably stream games, and all of the gaming consoles that are on the market will provide that.
Yeah. You know what I think is really interesting, kind of going off what you're saying, he also talks about in this article that we're living in a world where there are more physical devices than there ever has been. I mean, we've got tablets and smartphones. A lot of, I mean, who doesn't have a laptop? Like, everybody's got all of these devices, and so we're surrounded by them, and so we're not quite there yet. And something that he said in the middle of this article, he said, so we're going to start in 2019 and have people playing Xbox games on their phones, and we'll get a ton of feedback. And so it kind of sounds like they're going to be able to, I don't know if you saw this in the news, but there's a rumor that Xbox has a handheld device in the works right now. There was a patent that was filed back in July, and some people have turned the sketches of the patent into 3D renders of what it would look like. And the idea essentially is that there are going to be two components that attach to your cell phone. It kind of looks like a Nintendo Switch, same kind of style, but if the Joy-Cons were able to attach to your phone, that's kind of the idea of what the Xbox handheld device would be. So it's interesting that it kind of sounds like they're going to take advantage of these physical devices that surround us every day. Kind of talking about a lot about how we'll be able to stream their games, but you know, from their consoles or however they're going to go about it. So I'll be interesting. I think it's kind of funny that they have a patent for a handheld device. This is going to be kind of interesting to see, because the PlayStation hasn't done too well, I think, with their handheld devices. So hopefully Xbox has a couple of good ideas up their sleeves. I think if that's what they're going to go for, kind of attaching controllers to your smartphone, man, that's pretty smart, because you're not buying an entire console. You're just buying a controller that attaches to a smartphone that you already have.
Right.
So
I think, obviously, mobile gaming is already a huge market.
Right.
Sure that game devs and publishers are so interested in figuring out how to get a hold in the mobile market. Not necessarily like the true mobile games like sure whatever, but like, for example, there's a Fire Emblem game for mobile.
Right.
Nintendo made that Mario Run game, right? They're making some of their properties into handheld mobile games, and they are to take advantage of the powerful mobile devices that we have nowadays, and leverage that to make better and better games that people will buy and play on the go.
Right.
Wouldn't want to do that because everyone's got one.
Yeah, it's just an untapped
and it's so
market.
connectable.
Yeah, I think it's smart, because you know, if they're not playing your system, you still want them engaged in your content one way or another. And everybody's on their phones, man. You go anywhere in public, you sit down at a restaurant, everybody's on their phone. So being able to tap into that, it could be super beneficial for these bigger game companies.
Totally.
Speaking of bigger game companies, did you hear that Sony acquired Insomniac today?
Tell me about it.
Or they are going to acquire. Sounds like they're in talks of acquiring them, which I think is going to be a big deal. It probably has a lot of credit due to Spider-Man's success on the PlayStation. Everyone who's played that game has talked highly of it. It was a lot of fun. I played it. I beat the game. Had a lot of fun playing it and enjoying that. The mechanics in that game are so impressive. So I was super happy with the way that game turned out, and they constantly are rolling out DLC for the game as well. So I assume that's probably why. It sounds like they're still in talks, but that's what's going to happen. And I just assume that Sony just wants to keep working with them and produce these single player experiences. I think that's one of the big things that Sony has for them are those exclusive titles like Spider-Man. So if they can get them to work on more games specifically and exclusively for their console, it could do them pretty good. And these guys, they've pumped out a bunch of good stuff. They've got Ratchet and Clank, Spyro, Song of the Deep. There's some Overdrive that was one a lot of people told me to play. But it's cool that they're investing into these studios that are really successful to help benefit their console.
And I would hope that this could be helpful for Insomniac Games, give them kind of a to really develop some of those beloved titles that they are well known for.
Yeah. And my biggest complaint with Xbox is that they just don't have as many exclusives compared to Sony and Nintendo. I mean, they do have their fair share, but when it comes to Sony and Nintendo, I feel like they're just lacking significantly in their exclusive titles. But again, Phil was talking about, he tweeted out that, yes, I can confirm with the additions to XGS, we have a lot of teams that have built strong SP-focused games, and we want that to continue. So he's confirming that they're working on single-player titles at the moment. He didn't talk about how many there are, but he says that we have a lot of teams that have built strong single-player focused games, and we want to continue that. So it sounds like they're trying to really build up that portfolio.
Just Dance is on the list.
Just Dance?
He's like, we're working on really great, deep single-player experiences for our players, and it's Just Dance.
Oh, man, that's the moneymaker. Everybody's got Just Dance.
Everybody's got it.
Everybody's got it. So that's cool. I mean, I'm glad that they're... I feel like Xbox is the platform for multiplayer. Everybody that I know who plays multiplayer games typically play on an Xbox. And everybody that I know that have and enjoy those single-player experiences, they're either on a PlayStation or on a Nintendo. So, man, if Xbox gets more of those single-player games, I think they'll crush it even more, even though they pretty much have the market. Xbox got the most consoles sold, don't they?
Oh no, PlayStation outsold them this generation by way far.
That's true. We talked about that last podcast. It was they hit 100 million units. Yeah, that's crazy.
Crazy, man.
That's crazy. Well, it's pretty crazy to kind of... I love the spirit of competition because I think it only produces better content. So for us consumers, it's really good.
That's true.
So Modern Warfare. They're Warfare. They are doing a battle royale.
They haven't confirmed it, and so who knows? But the rumors on the mill, and I think there was some leaks. They're leaks, so who knows? But there's some buzz around a possible battle royale mode coming to the Call of Duty Modern Warfare game, maybe.
Interesting.
At some point.
Do you think that would hurt Black Ops at all?
Well, yeah. I mean, it would. I think there are a few Call of Duty games that have a very strong following.
Okay.
Fan favorites, but at mostly once the new Call of Duty game comes out, the one prior to it definitely has a drop in players.
That's true. Everyone pretty much migrates to the latest and greatest. I would feel kind of hurt if I had purchased Black Ops 4 because that game, is it a year old yet? I still feel like it's under the year mark. And
it's close to a year.
Yeah, it's close to a year. It was a $60 game and it only had Battle Royale.
So I'd feel kind of cheated if I had to pay $60 just to play it for a year when the new Call of Duty is coming out that would include Battle Royale mode. I don't know. I'm not like everybody, though.
Blackout had like some multiplayer modes, some of the more arena stuff. They just didn't do the campaigns, so
yeah.
It still had content, but I know what you're saying, and that's kind of the hard part is that it's just like Activision publishes Call of Duty. There is always a new one. Every year there's a new one. So whether you want it or not.
What do you think about that turnaround time? Do you think that that's too soon to release games for a franchise?
I think it depends. Typically, yes. Quality.
Yeah.
Longer dev cycle. But because they have 3 studios making Call of Duty games every 2 years, extends that period for them to maybe hashtag make quality games, but
I don't know. I personally think it's great that they've got multiple studios working on these games so that they could have that high turnaround game, but I also feel like it doesn't give you an opportunity to really enjoy the game. And as much as I love The Legend of Zelda, I feel like the quality of the games would go down if there was a new Zelda game every year. So I don't know. I kind of feel like Call of Duty's lost a lot of that oomph in its franchise name because, you know, coming in if I'm new coming into this franchise, I wouldn't even know where to begin. There's not really a beginning point. You just pick one up and go.
You choose the ones that your friends are playing, and the ones that you've heard are cool. If you're joining fresh, if you're just coming in, you probably just pick up the most recent title. Unless one of them specifically caters to a need that you have.
That's true.
Like a Battle Royale or something. But it seems to work for them. They still sell consistently a high number of games. So
I know it's ridiculous how many games they sell, but hey, I guess the fan base is happy if they keep buying them. So props to them. So tell me, man, what are you playing this week? What you been playing? It's actually been 2 weeks.
Been a long time.
Yeah.
Too long.
What have you been playing?
There's been a few good sales going on, so
Ooh la la.
Dark Souls 3 DLC pack on Xbox. And I've been getting into that.
Very
Beat
nice.
the base Dark Souls 3, but like as expensive as the game is, so I've never bought it.
Right.
So it was on sale. I dug back through some of my other games for gold stuff that on my Xbox from the past.
Yeah.
I had downloaded a game called Child of Light. It's a side-scroller RPG. So I've been playing that, and it's been a lot of fun. I've really been enjoying it.
Nice, dude. That's pretty cool. That's a cool thing to do. Go back and look at the library that you have from Xbox. Because I download so many games, and half of them I don't even download or even play. I just get them in the event that one day I want to play it. So that's cool that you actually went back and are playing some of those. Are you liking them?
I mean, so far I've been enjoying it. I did try to play that game before when I downloaded it initially, and I didn't really get into it. But this time I've really liked it. So
that's cool. That's way cool.
What about you? What's on your playlist?
I have been pretty much just in Overwatch. I haven't been able to game a lot this past week or the past 2 weeks. But I've been playing Overwatch here and there. I was really curious about their update that they had. So last time we talked, we discussed how they were gonna start doing the role locking, and the new Sigma character was coming out. So all of that's been released probably close to a week now. And it's really changed up the dynamic of the game. So first, they have fixed competitive play 100%. Instead of having to do 10 competitive matches to calibrate your skill set, it's 5. But it's 5 per class. So if you want to play strictly as a healer or support or as a tank, you play that and you do 5 rounds for that specific class. So it's really cool because I was able to get my ranking in a day or two, and
Nice.
I can just focus specifically on that class, and I really enjoy it. I was afraid that it would be kind of like a free-for-all where it was whoever gets to pick the character first and then everybody else gets kind of screwed. But the way that they have it built out, which is pretty genius, is when you go to competitive play, you select which class you want to play in, and it will throw you in matches where they need that specific class. So I don't have to scramble around and fight somebody to get my main, which is really cool. So people can really focus on the characters that they want to play as. And I think it's a genius touch to competitive. I think it fixes the whole game, really. Competitive was already just, in my mind, a mess for Overwatch, unless you're already a pro. But it really changes the dynamic of the game, because I'm used to playing games where there's like 4 DPS and like a healer and 1 tank, and it changes.
That's a good team.
Yeah, it's a good team. So it changes big time because I've been playing strictly attack, and it's been really hard because I feel like the weight of the match is on my shoulders because I'm the guy that's supposed to go out there and kill everybody. And while I'm getting healed and one of the tanks are either trying to protect me or hold the ground or hold the fort. So it's really mixed up the gameplay quite a bit. And it is a little bit more competitive, but I like it a lot. So I recommend it. You get back into Overwatch, Riley.
Yes. What you say, I'll do.
I haven't played the new character Sigma yet. I've been killed by Sigma several times, and he's a pretty interesting character. I got to give him a playthrough, but he's a pretty cool guy so far. I think he's one of the main tanks that people pick now, him and Reinhardt. So really happy with that. I've been playing that, and I want to play more. This will be the first time that I only play competitive through the season. I always just clicked quick play and just got in a round so I can get in and out. But I think I'm going to just do competitive and see how far I get. So I ranked platinum, by the way, if you're wondering.
Sweet.
You're right. You're right. Cool. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up about everything that we had ready to talk about today. We do need to get back into our streaming and do some what are we playing? Hollow Knight. I haven't been able to stream. This has just been the craziest week, but maybe we'll get that stream going on Thursday.
We'll get that stream going on Thursday.
Hell yeah. All right, well, thanks everybody for listening and joining us this week. So make sure you catch us on your favorite streaming platform. We're on iTunes and Google and Spotify and all that other crap. So all those spices. So yeah, we'll catch you guys next week then.